Welcome to today's webinar. I apologize for the delay. We had some technical difficulties with our camera here, so we're a little bit late, but welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Today's topic is back to school, engaging students from day one. So thanks for joining us today. My name is Paul Cotter. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Stukent, and I'm so happy to be hosting this webinar today. Now, before we dive in, let's get familiar with our format and especially with the chat feature on the right-hand side of your screen. Go ahead, use it, say hi, tell us where you're from, tell us which university you're teaching at. We'd love to hear from you. We also want you to communicate with us today. This is an interactive presentation, so if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in at any time, and then we will do a live Q&A at the end of today's presentation. So welcome everyone. It looks like we've got a lot coming through here. I can't even read them. We've got Charles from Webster University in St. Louis, Ellen from Florida, Stephen from San Diego, Dave from Salt Lake City. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We've had a really good response to this session today, and we are so happy to be with you. Now, as a special gift for everyone attending today's webinar, we want to offer you free instructor access to any of Stukent's courseware or Simternships. Now, these bundles are a comprehensive package that feature hundreds of instructor and student resources, including our groundbreaking simulations, our continuously updated courseware, and just a wealth of engaging assignments, auto-graded quizzes, test banks, everything for your students. So everything is designed to seamlessly integrate the theory that you're teaching in your classroom with real-world experience. So go ahead and click the link now, and we'll give you access to any simulation or courseware that you're wanting at this time. Now, before we get into the presentation, I want to welcome today's guest. His name is Douglas Beach. So go ahead and come on stage. And while he's doing that, I'm going to read his bio. Douglas is a passionate marketing professor. He's dedicated to inspiring students and educators to unlock their full potential. With over 2 decades of experience, he emphasizes the importance of soft skills, emotional intelligence, and resilience in education and business. Now, through his work with TwinBro, Douglas has developed over 35,000, he's helped over 35,000 disadvantaged youth access post-secondary education and financial aid. That's pretty cool. Now, his teaching philosophy centers on empowering students to believe in their abilities and adapt to an ever-changing world. Douglas he's advocated for integrating AI into education and enhancing the learning experience. Douglas, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Awesome. We are so happy that you're with us today. Now, for everyone joining us, today's format, we're going to do this a little different, and we're going to run this almost like a Q&A with myself and Douglas. So we're just going to jump in right now, and I'm going to ask you the first question. Now, the question is, reflecting on your own style of teaching, what is one thing you recommend that people can do on the very first day of class to break the ice and connect with their students?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Paul. There's a little bit of feedback. Do I sound okay?
You sound great.
Okay, perfect. So hello, everybody. It's so nice to see so many different people from so many different places. It reminds me of attending ProfCon, and I don't know if I met any of you last year in Phoenix, but I hope I did. For today's session, I really wanted to focus on simple copy and paste techniques that I just wish I knew. I've been teaching full-time now in marketing for 9 years, and I think grabbing student engagement is so valuable just to enjoy teaching, just to make sure that the messages are having a great chance of sinking in. So I created a slide deck, but I don't want to live in the slide deck for this whole presentation, but the idea of the slide deck is that it's going to be available in the handouts, so that any of the techniques or the AI strategies or any of the instructional manuals, you can just simply copy and paste it. If you thought that you really vibed with this technique, you don't need to create it. I'm really a big fan of sharing with everybody. So Paul's question, engaging students from day one. If we could put up the slide deck, how do we do this, Paul? Do I just click on something here? Or? Yeah, so this is actually from my first slide. I just did this a couple of weeks ago. That's a picture of me when my first year teaching, so it's almost 9 years old. And it's a little bit boring. And I just want to point out that to get engagement from our students, I really think that we need to focus on a couple of things that have worked for me. One is just the power of vulnerability and really working on building that trust with your students that, you know, you're there for them. You're really invested in what their lives are about and what the motivation is for that they're there. So like this kind of introduction just allows me to, you know, give them my email. But if we click to the next slide, I really one before that, yeah, I really try to let them have a view into my life in a very short kind of a way. And this does a couple of things. One, they get to see me as a person, not as an instructor talking at the front of the room. So I would just be like, my name is Douglas Beach. My preferred name is Douglas. This is a very quick exercise, but you should pay attention. And this is an important engagement strategy. We're always telling them why. And the reason why is because they're going to be doing this exact exercise at the beginning of the next class. They're going to have a chance to learn about all of the students in the class. And at the same time, I'm going to be able to learn about all my students, and they're going to be creating this as an individual slide deck so that I have their picture, I have their name, I have some of their interest, I know why they're in this class, so I can customize my class and make it more relevant for those students. So you look at this, I would just be talking about our family just did a trip to Japan to watch the F1 race. That was really fun. My wife made the doodle in the left-hand corner. I talk about a bit of my industry experience, and I just really try to make it like specialized for that course and why it's relevant. I started as a technologist. I started a company called Hire the World back in 2009. And so my responsibility was trying to figure out how to get customers for a new business and in such a way that we could scale it and so that we could go raise capital and grow the business. And I did that all the way till 2013. And then I promised myself I would never build software again. It was a lie, but at the time I was done with building software. But we had a really successful start, which was lucky to be young and you know, have your first crack. But then I tried to figure out something else. I wanted to move on, so I started a family. Jonah Jackson's there by the shark. He's the love of my life. I just dropped him off kindergarten about an hour ago before I came here. And as a family, we build board games. We build board games through this company called Jumping High Five. And you can see they're super nerdy. And I'm a super nerd. I play lots of board games, lots of video games, and we made that kind of the family business. So that's a bit of the introduction. But if we go to the next slide, you can do this for your students too. And so we use Office 365. I just provide an editable link. And so there's no uploading PowerPoints later on next week. And they have instructions and an example because my slide's at the top. And if you go to the next slide, you can just see a couple of the examples from class. So this class is new venture marketing. So they have to come in with a business idea so we can customize it for the given class. So we get to know who the students are. You can see some of the students on the side. But if it's for a different class, and we just go one more slide further, I know we said we weren't going to live in the slide deck, but this is the introduction. This is the promotional strategy class example. So instead of coming in with a business idea, we give them a bunch of examples because in this class, we're going to talk about it later. They're doing real marketing projects for industries, local industries around our school. And so this is a time for them to show why they're going to be a great teammate because they're responsible for choosing teams that will be effective in helping out these clients. And so I know that's a lot at the beginning, but I think what does this accomplish in the first week? I know a lot more about my students. I have a whole slide deck where I can learn names much quicker because I'm anchoring their faces to their given names. Now, I'm very lucky in my current school. I only have 35 students in every class. I know that in my old school, there'd be 150, 160 students. But same thing, the really engaged students, I can come in here, or the really unengaged students, I can come in here and try to make the lectures more relevant. So I think that's how I break the ice, Paul, in the first week.
That's great. You mentioned in your previous school, you had about 135 students in your class. Did you use the same icebreaker activity to get to know them?
Yeah. So a lot of these tools that we utilize, I used previously, but differently. So it's a great question. Usually we break the class down into groups. So people would be introducing themselves to smaller groups. And then how you kind of change it is you're like, well, from your teams, you're going to have to come up with the 2 or most 3 interesting things from your group. So you just got to find ways to scale it with bigger groups so that they can participate. But I think the engagement hook there is that everybody knows that they're going to be presenting either to their peers or to the class in general. So it's it gives a little bit of a incentive.
Great. And what's your feedback from the students on doing this activity?
I think they really enjoy it. I think that it ties in well with some of the topics we're going to talk about soon. There's fear. There's great fear across the board because public speaking isn't everybody's favorite activity. But I teach marketing, and you're going to have to get great at presenting your ideas, be it a job interview, even if you're not going into marketing. Because we have lots of students that are doing marketing as an elective. And I think this just sets the tone that, yes, your presentation skills matter, and that's going to be the expectation in the class.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. The next question I would ask is, what's a major challenge that you face when you're trying to get students to focus and engage fully in the classroom?
Yes. So I think the challenge that I face is very similar to what my kindergarten son faces, and that's engagement and fighting against screens. If we go forward, I don't know if the slide deck's still on or if it's back to
It's on,
to us.
yes. Mm-hmm.
So in all of my classes, I've A/B tested this, and it might seem like a shock for some people, but like, I lead with kindness, first of all. I try to really understand that our students have really busy careers. They have kids, they have responsibilities, there's illnesses, there's family illnesses. And so I try to have some flexibility, but there's some things that aren't flexible. So I have a no phone, no laptop, no screen policy, which is really about prioritizing soft skills. And that surprised a lot of my fellow teachers at Douglas College in the first couple of years. And they're like, well, how can you get students to agree to that? Did they revolt? And yeah, there used to be a lot of resistance. But every year, every semester, I first started doing A/B testing in my 3rd year. So that was 6 years ago, meaning that I did half the classes where they were allowed to take notes on laptops and half the classes where they weren't allowed. And it's just a night and day difference. And when we're talking about engagement, sure, students still need to bring laptops to class. It's just that, to be clear, they're not allowed to use them during when I'm doing any kind of discussion or presentation where I'm trying to have a back and forth conversation, and then absolutely not whenever students are giving presentations. And to tie that back to the why students should be really considering this, well, the first one is just the value of the network. We have a very diverse student body from all over the world. We have about 50% of our students are international students. And just letting them know, like, even the top students or the not top students, like, most of my powerful network now is students that were, top students or not top students. Like, a lot of my crazy students that just had a lot of fun during university are now CEOs of big companies. And so just really tying this idea of how important it is that we're communicating and that we're learning to communicate with each other. And for them to take a little bit of notice. So in my school, one part of the business school, it's almost like a giant fishbowl. You can go in circles around the entire school and you can look at other classes. And I ask my students to look into the classes and just see how many students are taking notes and how many students are just getting really, really good at League of Legends or watching, a soccer match on TV. So I think that's probably my number one suggestion. It's made teaching so much more fun. I put a video in the PowerPoint. It's you guys can utilize it, but there's lots of videos on YouTube. Yeah, right there. It's just, it's a 10-year-old video, but it just talks about the science of what's happening in your brain. It's showing what it does to your posture. And I think intuitively, a lot of our students already know, like you can do the test, ask them to just see how many hours they spend on their phone, but they don't need to. They don't need to. And pushing that towards vulnerability, I don't try to shame anybody about their phone or their laptop use. I admit to them that I struggle with this as well as an adult that didn't grow up with a phone, right? But now as an adult, I see my grandparents that love to be on Candy Crush all the time, and they're watching that at the dinner table, and we just need to reverse that a bit. And we're lucky. My kindergarten, my kid is the first year in our elementary school where there's no phones allowed on campus. Like teachers can't have phones during recess or lunch. It's the first year it's been implemented in BC, and they're already talking about how it shows a difference. So that's a long answer for me convincing myself that I'm doing the right thing. That you got to bring a notebook, you got to bring a pencil. There's no laptops or screens during presentations in class.
Okay, great. Love the boldness of that move. The next question. You've spoken about connecting classroom projects to real world industry scenarios. So what are some of the simple ways that educators can make assignments feel authentic, even when resources might be limited?
Yes. So we're lucky at Douglas College where we have a great alumni office, we have a business development office, and we have connections with industry. So we have I think that they're semi-annually where we have a board of industry experts from local businesses that connect with us, and they're just really telling us what they need locally, because we're a practical college. We want to teach students to have job-ready skills. And so one way that we do it in lots of our classes, in our marketing department, currently we do it in 8 classes where the students work on real industry projects. And so I was going to use my marketing 3340 as an example. And if you just forward the slide deck here, I can forward the slide deck. This is perfect. I just kind of want to talk through, well, what does that mean to work with a real industry partner, and how can you set it up so that it's, it's got a great chance of success, but it's not too much work for the instructors? Because like, I'm hoping that all of these ways to engage students isn't about giving teachers more work. It's actually about setting up a structure so that teachers and students can both be successful, but like we don't need to give teachers additional work. So saying that, there is some upfront work to make sure that there is success. And so we used to use Ripen, but now we're working with our business development office to really attract local businesses, and it's great. It's much more engaging where students can go visit a local business. And how that looks like is we get an industry partner. And so there's a call for applications, and we're overwhelmed. We're really lucky. We get to choose. We've just built a reputation. So we get lots of businesses looking to have the privilege to connect with our students. And that's how you have to position it. You don't want to connect with many industries that are businesses or new businesses that are just looking to get cheap labor. That's not the greatest partner. For the promotional strategy class, it's so busy that most companies, you have to have at least $1 million in annual revenue. It's kind of like a cutoff point, because we're creating marketing plans, and you need to have a real budget to be able to have students on the why is this important for them to actually have a chance to win their work so that they can see their work go into the real world. And so it's initial meetings. I put it out. I go through and I'm looking for certain qualities that would work really well with the promotional strategy class. I pick up the top few, and then we have one-on-one interviews, and then I put the work on the instructor. It's really about, not the instructor, the client. It's really important that the client has skin in the game. You do not want a client disappearing halfway through or not understanding the scope of the project, so that the students are, either taken advantage of or there's no engagement with the students. The value is the students having this connection with the employer. So the employers have to write RFPs. I give them a bunch of examples from past successful organizations. We've worked with companies like Panago, New Beverages, which is a large alcoholic company here in Canada. I don't know if they've spread throughout the US yet, but even local. We had one store, the local banh mi store that's just up the street, but the students love it. They did a project one year. And so that RFP comes to me, and then the beginning of the class, when we're doing these introductions, and we're like, well, why is this important? Well, now you're actually building your portfolio, and the classroom changes. It changes into a competition, and all the students form marketing agencies. And these marketing agencies are going to compete to make the best plans and present the best plans to a real client that, as long as they have some good ideas, will get to see their ideas invested in and then participated in after the semester ends. And so we've had a few of our students now hired to implement these plans. There's been some great success stories. Just some tips for, well, how do you make this work? I think a couple pieces of advice. One is I usually try to make a class of 35, so 6 teams, which is a lot, either work on only 1 or 2 projects. The reason being is I really need to understand the project and how a marketing plan could be successful for that company, so that I can consult and mentor my students the entire time. If I don't understand all the different businesses, it's going to be very, very difficult for our one-on-ones to consult with the students and give appropriate advice. The second is setting the scope. So making sure it's really clear that the students understand what scope creep is, how to make sure that you're working with the students to get to a place that the client and myself is excited. Like, the students have a tough time. They have 2 stakeholders here. They have their teacher, and then they have the business, and we both have to be happy for them to do well. And that actually works really well, because that makes sure that they're doing all their research up front and making sure before they come up with their big marketing idea that I'm approving it and I'm the filter. So it's a little bit of a safety net before it goes to the employer or the client. And then the last thing is making sure the client is protected. So all the teams are only allowed to have 1 lead contact. So at maximum, if the whole class was working for 1 client, they have to meet 6 students. They're only allowed to message them via email once a week. But they can earn more, and most do. The teams that are really proactive and have great ideas and the clients get excited about, they meet in person, they meet on Zoom. That kind of falls away. And then for some teams that aren't interacting, they might only email the client 3 or 4 times throughout the semester, but they all have to present live to the client at the end. And so that's the whole long-winded approach to how we get real industry experience into the class in a way where your students aren't only accessing yourself for advice, but the clients for advice and getting real experience. I hope that's clear. I know that it was a long story.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great format that you have there. So talking about that a little further, how does this project linking to industry, how does that change the student buy-in and their engagement compared to maybe more traditional assignments?
Yeah, so I think that there's an initial fear, which can be a bit motivating. Like, you got to try to turn that fear into excitement, but them knowing that they're going to be held accountable on a weekly basis, I think grabs them right at the beginning. I think the second part too is that there's something that clicks where they feel like they're actually a marketer. And if you think about our jobs, or at least how I think about my job, is like, well, I ask my students often actually, well, when do you become a marketer? Is it when you take 20 more classes, when you keep paying for it? Like, when is this time that you magically create value into the world? And having them ponder that question and discuss that question for a while, because my belief and what I think I know is that the real answer is when you believe that you can bring value. And so connecting them to show that by the end of the semester, we have companies that would have paid 10,000, 50,000 X dollars because we asked them at the end of the semester how valuable this was for them, and being able to tie that to their belief systems where they've been just paying for education up to this point, I hope really flips the switch. And I've seen it flip the switch for a lot of students where they're like, hey, this isn't school, like real life is coming and this is my opportunity to go get it. And that's the switch. I can't tell you how fun that is to experience in the classroom. It's just great for instructors too, I think. I don't think it just helps the students. I think it helps us be better at our jobs too.
Great. Moving on to the next question. What's one small shift you would recommend instructors make in their next class session to spark stronger student ownership or buy-in?
Yeah. So I thought about this one for a while, and I have a really small one. And my goal is, again, to eliminate work from instructor's side, but to make sure there's fairness with students. And so there's some really smart students that I've had over the past years that don't want to do any work in groups, but want to get all the credit. And so they do a great job selling themselves in the getting to know you PowerPoint and exercise. And then their performance becomes a little bit lackluster throughout the semester. And I know that my colleagues, this wasn't my original idea, do peer evaluations. And I have taken kind of peer evaluation and just made a little bit of a shift. So I had peer evaluations when I was in university, but I don't think the incentive was right, or I didn't agree with the incentive, because like you could earn more marks by having less marks for people that didn't perform as much. That's not how I run mine. So mine is optional peer evaluations. They're 100% optional, and they're anonymous. So they could be worth up to 50% of your mark. And in promotional strategy, it's worth 50% of your marks. So out of the entire course, with the midterm and the final, the promotional strategy assignment is worth 50%. Now, whatever you get on that, so say your team got 80%. If your team has a super negative peer evaluation, you could lose 50%. So your team might get 80%, you might get 40%. And how that is done is what makes it optional and anonymous is that nobody does peer evaluations. In fact, we coach the students about like, hey, lead with kindness again. Like, you don't know what's happening with your student body. Somebody could be sick. They could be dealing with any number of issues that we all deal with at some point in our life. So start a conversation, be professional. If that doesn't work, then try to get me to come in and facilitate the conversation. Maybe there's something else going on where the student isn't comfortable telling the students, and that we can talk privately, make me aware of it. But if we've done all these things and the student's still not showing up to meetings, not showing up at class, it just takes one team member, just one. Any team member in a group can email me, and it will be kept private. And I'll just let every team member know that they are now required to do a peer evaluation, which is almost like an extra assignment. Luckily, we do all of our assignments in this trackable sprint format, but that's another story. But if all of your peers are saying that you didn't do anything, and then we have a consultation and I ask you to go through the work and it checks out, you're not going to make it through that class on the coattails of somebody else. And so I think that that's one thing that you can do at the beginning of class, along with like academic integrity, which we're going to talk about in a second here, and AI stuff, just to make sure that students are aware 100% right at the beginning. Like, if you're going to stay in this class, you're going to be expected to pull your weight, or it might not be the class for you.
So if I understood what you were saying, you send out the peer evaluation if you get a notification that someone might not be participating as they should. Then you send it to the entire team.
Yeah, if we've gone through all the steps that I talked about before, then yes, it just takes one student to say, I'd like to do a peer evaluation. The only other rule too is that they have to do it no later than 2 weeks left in class. They can't do it on the last day. So you get lots of teams, that save all their work till the end, especially teams that might not have been performing that well. They can't get off the hook at the very, very end. So there's this idea of making sure we're communicating throughout the semester.
Great. Okay, well, you kind of gave a lead into this, but let's talk a little bit about student accountability and AI, and how you have adapted your assignments to ensure that students are learning and not just relying on AI to complete their work.
Yeah, so AI is a big talking point. I just met with some people from another school here yesterday, because at Douglas College, I think we've made a pretty quick transition. We now offer AI through ChatGPT 5 through Copilot to all of our students and all of our instructors. That's new this semester. But to give my stance on AI, when it first came out, like I've been pro AI since the very beginning, especially in marketing. I think I was lucky. I went to a conference in San Diego called Social Media World, and the speaker came up. There's about 5,000 people in attendance. It's a giant conference. They're all from agencies, marketing agencies. And the speaker, the first question, this is a few months after ChatGPT came out, and they're like, hey, is anybody utilizing AI? And the entire audience just started laughing and all put up their hands. And so it was very clear to me that this is, when we're talking about practical skills for students in marketing, you're going to have to be able to use these tools, because marketing agencies are going to have that expectation. So when I got back, I was really lucky. I went and talked to my dean and asked for a budget for my promotional strategy class, because the cool thing about promotional strategy is that without the teams that had graphic designers, and that's not a requirement for our marketing department, always had an advantage because they could actually create mock-ups of the creative. And now this is possible with these LLMs. And so my my dean gave me a budget for one class, and he was very clear. He's like, do you know that all the instructors are telling us that we got to shut down AI, and you're the only one in here asking for a budget? But that budget led to great things. It got our school to go on the enterprise waitlist for figuring out how we could offer this to all of our students. And then when it became clear, at least in our business school, that this is going to be a practical skill, we were able to offer it with everybody. To answer your question though, like how do you make it so that AI isn't doing everything? I could talk for hours about this, but some main things that have helped us. In my business school, my marketing department has about 18 instructors full-time and then contractors. We have been iterating on a shared department-wide policy. So if I go back, how can I click through here on the slides? There we go. Yeah, so if you click that link, don't click it right now, but that link, when you look at the PowerPoint, you can see it. You can see exactly what goes into our course outline. That is what we as a department have agreed on. It's the best that we can do so far. It's been, it started with like, you can only use 5%. And then it was like, you can only use 10%. Then it was like, no, but you need to cite it. And then you need to include prompts. So I think that it's a work in progress, but the key is that all of our classes, at least in the marketing department, has the same rules. And that saves instructors so much time because and students, it makes it clear for students that they can learn one set of rules and they just copy it throughout all of their classes, at least for our department. I think that's really, really important that you have an agreed upon approach across classes. Saying that, that sheet in our course outlines exists in all of our course outlines, but instructors do not have to use AI in their classrooms. So like, we've had lots of discussions about, should we have courses on teaching students how to use AI? And our approach so far, the answer is probably yes, but our approach so far is no. Instead, let's integrate AI into projects where they make sense, right? And so that has created all of these micro experiments, I guess you could call it, and then we relate them back into department meetings, what's working, what's not working. And so that's worked really, really well for us. The other part of AI, I think, and getting students engaged from day one, is really being clear on your academic integrity policy and your AI policy in the opening day, and really letting the students know that you're on their team, right? You're here to help them, guide them. They should ask questions, because we're promoting a lot of AI usage for, brainstorming in certain case studies and use cases. But tying that also to academic integrity. So I don't know what it's like for everybody else that's on this call, but for us, like when we have cheating in exams, it is a lot of work for instructors. You have to put out a proof case, you have extra meetings. So I am very clear and firm on the first day. I try to become more friendlier as the semester comes on. But I let my students know during exams, I am not going to be marking exams at the front of the classroom. In fact, I spend all my exam time at the back of the classroom, answering questions, but looking for students that are wearing glasses that have AI capabilities. Or last semester, we had this very smart CSIS student who created a one-click prompt on the right mouse button that, turned on an LLM and then answered the question. And it was just a few clicks of the mouse, and without putting down in a testing environment that includes lockdown browser. I don't know if you guys have those tools, but we now have that at Douglas College, that shuts down all of their access to anything, any other kind of programming except your learning management system. Just making sure that they know that this is a competition. Everybody is trying to access the best universities, and that making it very clear that this is going to be, that academic integrity is going to be taken seriously, and this is how it's going to be taken seriously. And just, you might want to study because it's going to be very, very hard to cheat, and there's big consequences if they do. And not saying it in a judgy way, but like just letting them know, like, especially it's really bad for our international students. They could lose their visa. And so, and then there's like this, like, we have an academic integrity module that I don't want to go into today, but it's just really important to walk them through it, because in different cultures, like the lines on what is academic integrity or what is plagiarism are fuzzy. And so when we have a super diverse class, just making those really clear. And I get a lot of engagement from students that are curious about this right from the beginning, especially when they know that they can utilize AI for some of the projects. So yes, long-winded answers here, Paul.
That's very interesting. I did want to circle back to, you mentioned about the AI budget, and maybe share what your process was with that and any tips that you might have for someone wanting to get a little budget approved also.
Sure. So at least for our school, it really has to tie back always to tangible benefits for the students. And those tangible benefits for the students are usually connected to what our industry partners are demanding in the workplace. And so as long as we can tie that this is something that is demanded in the workplace, it becomes a pretty easy argument for us to try to get a little bit of a budget. Can I turn the slide deck off by any chance?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but like that and just starting small. And you know what, if we're trying something new, we always just call it a pilot, right? It's easier to get pilots approved to test things and learn from. And we've learned so much in the last couple of years. And if we didn't try those pilots, there's no way our IT department would have started going down this route of being like, oh, can we get AI access for all our students? And that's, I don't know if that exists in a lot of schools. Like maybe some of the people that are on this call can let us know if they have access for their students and for their colleagues, because I could do a whole other seminar on how much my materials have been improved because of AI, because I have giant blind spots like everybody where, you know, I talk too much. And so my slides have too much content on them, and AI lets me know that that's a problem that could be fixed.
Great. All right. Well, we've reached the point of the session where we'd love to just invite anyone who has questions to go ahead and enter those in the chat right now. We do have a couple that came through during your presentation that I'll read, and we'll wait for others. So when you were talking about the no phone policy, there were some questions on just how do you handle the kickback that you get from students for that?
Yeah, so I used to be very worried about that. The video that I shared on the PowerPoint, I think, made a big difference. When students have questions, I just go and answer them one by one. But I think the key for me was really tying it to the value of networking and the friendships that you're going to make in the class. So I guess looking for the incentive that means something to the student. And so, yeah, no phone phobia is a real thing. There's people that have, you know, this idea that you're reaching for phones. It's becoming this habit. And if you can make that, if you can work on making that argument about the long-term health of them and showing that you're caring about them and why that's important for them to be successful, and just keep tying it back to that, it seems to work. It seems to work for most students. I haven't had, when I first started doing it, I think I was a little bit timid about the policy, and so I got a lot more pushback. And now I'm just so convinced that I try to lead with kindness again, and some empathy, and to their success.
Great. So at some point you mentioned something about an enterprise wait list, and Mar is asking what that is.
Yes. So when we tried to get a budget for ChatGPT the first time, it was a lot of paperwork. I had to have my students pay for it up front first because they needed all individual accounts. And then I had to send that to the accountant. I had to send that to finance. I had to send that to the dean. They sent that back to me. I had to go to the bank and get the proper change to refund all my students that money. And so I was like, well, this is great for the pilot, I guess, like happy to have access. But then we wanted to get access, constant access through our IT department. And when we initially did that, the IT department, our dean was on board for our business school, and our IT department has to set up an inquiry for approved software in Canada. We have to make sure that Canadian servers are in Canada for us to be allowed to use the software because of the Patriot Act and our personal and privacy information laws here in Canada. So we just didn't qualify. And so, and they weren't really interested because they didn't have those servers in Canada. So we went on a wait list. And just getting us into the process, getting IT looking into possible solutions, it was just, you know, starting the cog of that engine to make it possible, because it's not as you guys probably know, like getting any kind of software approval or any kind of infrastructure approval through your school isn't like a private business. It's months, if not years, to go through. So that was just our starting point. That was 2 years ago when we first started, and we just got access this September.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. Well, Douglas, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great presentation with lots of good insights, and maybe, you know, some things that people might have thought, well, there's no way I could ever do that. So it's interesting to see that it's functioning and working with you. Love hearing that. I want to thank you once again for doing this today. I want to remind everyone that we have the free access that we're offering to any of our Stukent simulations, whether it's marketing, comms, or business. Go ahead and you can click and get access to that. We also have a link where you can see any of our upcoming webinars and events that we have. And we welcome you to check that out and see what we're offering next, and go ahead and join us in the future. But thanks again, Douglas, and thank you to everyone for watching us today. And we hope that you guys are having a great school year. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.